All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the June 2022 Design Advisory Panel. Just wanted to let everyone know on the call, this meeting is being recorded. The format for today's meeting is going to be a presentation by the applicant, followed by panel discussion. And then we do have some members of the public on the call, and they will be able to speak at that time after the panel discussion. And so on the agenda today is Battery Lane District Site C. This is a site plan level presentation, so we're focusing on architectural design and details, and if the DAP feels moved today to take a final vote on design excellence, that is potential. Like I said previously, we have two members missing, Rod and Damon, but we do have quorum today. And so we sent a memo a week or two ago describing the history of this site. The Battery Lane District as a sketch plan was reviewed by the Design Advisory Panel back in 2019, and that was part of a multi-site, a 5-site vision for the Battery Lane. And so the DAP review comments at that time were focused on creating a district-wide identity and bringing connectivity to that area. And we did include those previous comments in the staff memo itself. The applicant did, I'm sorry, my daughter's home with me today. The Frozen is over. So the design for this site has evolved since the sketch plan process. I think at that time, if you recall, they had proposed a lay-by at the front of the site that has been removed, and they've consolidated it down to one access point to the east side. And their masting is generally in conformance with the design guidelines of the sector plan. And staff did note in the memo, there's one main concern at the rear of the site where the applicant is proposing 2 through-block connections and how the rear of the site will be activated. And so with that, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to the applicant for presentation. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Grace. That was a great introduction. I'm Doug Bren. I'm with Brown Development, Alden Properties. We're very excited to be here today and present this project. When I typically start one of these interactions, I always say I'm not here to talk about a project. I'm here to talk about a place, and that's the way we feel about Battery Lane. As you said, we went through a sketch plan process in 2019. Just let me point out this on this graphic, you can see the sketch plan included the sites that are in the darker color that have letters attached to them. But Alden also owns and operates 2 high-rise buildings that were built in the 60s, and those are in the lighter brown. The other garden-style buildings that were part of our sketch plan were built in the 50s. So the importance of this is that we're committed to a mixed-income neighborhood, and so we adopted a strategy to retain and replace. Retain the high-rise buildings as 329 units in those 2 buildings, and then replace the older garden-style buildings that have 477. So that was our strategy going forward. And then in our sketch plan, as Grace said, we really focused on strengthening the residential character of the neighborhood, really looking at the unifying elements being Battery Lane and the trolley trail, and looking to improve the connectivity. And when I say connectivity, it's certainly physical connectivity, accessibility and mobility, improving pedestrian safety and the pedestrian experience, providing a cycle track, 2-way cycle track that's separated from the vehicle traffic on Battery Lane all the way from Woodmont to Old Georgetown. So physical connectivity, very important. Social connectivity, just as important. None of our buildings today have any facilities for meetings, social interaction, recreation, any of that. So as you'll see in our site plan, we propose to remedy that with a lot of facilities and spaces, both interior and exterior, to encourage social interaction. And then finally, environmental connectivity is very important. We want to provide stormwater management, energy efficient buildings, significant tree canopy, all to, again, provide for environmental connectivity in the Battery Lane neighborhood. So with that, I'll just go through the next image. Just quickly, some changes, updates mentioned. The sketch plan to the left had several curb cuts from Battery. We've consolidated those into just one curb cut, again, improving the pedestrian and bike user experience on Battery Lane. And we really tried to remove this, what was a ring road, the amount of asphalt that's encircled the site, remove that and replace it with green and tree landscaping. And our design team will get into that in some detail. So all of that is, we think, really helped improve the for this site. And then there are some changes in massing, which will be described by our architecture team, which also, I think, are significant improvements. So,
all right. Next slide.
Good morning. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Good morning. My name is Siti Abdurrahman. I'm with WDG Architecture. So the slide that you see on the screen right now is the massing diagram that we did for the project. So the first one on the right, the first one on the left, top left, is actually what's approved in the site plan, sketch plan, which is designed. It was designed to be a two-tower residential building that's sitting on top of a podium. So when we have evolved the design to become into just a single tower concept with reduced footprint and with significant setback on each side, on all sides actually of the building. And this setback allows us to provide true block connection that is shown in green on the second slide there. Yeah, thank you, Bob. On the east, on the west, and this is connecting, the property north of Battery Lane to the property, along Rugby Avenue. And on the third slide, we also sculpted the image, so sculpted the massing actually by making the facade of the building facing Battery Lane, and then we sculpt the building in a way, we step it back, tapering down to the south. And based on that articulation, it really reduced the significantly the footprint of the building. In addition, it allows us to provide residential amenity outdoor for the residential building and also for the neighbors, because we set back typically on all sides. So we've been really be able to do that successfully with this project. Next slide, please, Bob. Okay. So on this slide here is showing that at 120 feet tall, building C is our building. We are compatible with our neighbors when they develop in the future. They will also have a similar allowable height of 120 feet. So you can see we fit pretty well the neighborhood. And for the next slide, I'm going to pass this along to Trini, who will be discussing the landscape and urban design aspect of the project. Trini?
Good morning, everyone. Trini Rodriguez from Parker Rodriguez. I think both Doug and CT have described kind of like the major moves of how this project has evolved, which we think it really has improved the public realm and the relationship to the context. You've seen this slide before, but I think we wanted to highlight here is one, the importance of sort of the streetscape improvements that we are, incorporating as part of that frontage. It's very important how the building relates to that streetscape, how it fits within the context. I think you all know we've been working with staff, especially to move the drop-off that used to be in the front to the side. We still want that because that is activity that is, part of that sort of energizing sort of element in the streetscape, that it is, you can see that from the streetscape, but it becomes more of a plaza space that engages, both the sidewalk as well as the interior. And along that frontage, you see in a minute how we're kind of treating that as more as a front porch, an extension of the building, kind of engaging the streetscape and providing a lot of porosity internally into the site. And you'll see that in a minute, sort of views internally into a courtyard that you'll see how that kind of engages both, the residents and the passerby. And then, lastly but not least, is sort of the improvements that have been made to the edges of the building, sort of the two sides and the rear, which the elimination of that loop road has allowed to actually create a system of pedestrianly oriented open spaces. And both those two that were part of the master plan, the western connector and the eastern connector on both sides, will potentially sort of link down to Rugby. And you'll see that in a minute. So next. So this is that image that I was mentioning about the streetscape. So we've been working with staff also on incorporating the bikeway and the cycle track. You can see here how that's in the forefront. We'll have a bus stop that, we'll still be coordinating the exact location because we want to make sure that, and you'll see how that kind of relates to the streetscape in a minute. So this is our idea of having the building really creating a very strong edge with a very strong pedestrian level treatment, and our sidewalk kind of how it engages with that. Of course, at that level, all of the activities are facing forward. They're the building amenities, but there will be activity in all of them, so it will really engage with the streetscape. Next. So this is a close-up. I think I had mentioned before how we're trying to make this a very transparent, a very active sort of front porch. We have outdoor seating. We have an arrival plaza or entrance plaza that you can see with a focal element. But then beyond it is a courtyard. It's sort of a two-level courtyard, which we'll describe a little more in a minute. And so you can see our goal is to create that transparency to see through. This is very unique. It's very difficult to get these kind of spaces in Bethesda, but luckily in this site, we have the opportunity to create a very unique space that kind of relates interior, exterior, and it leads your eye up into the second level courtyard, which is again, the resident amenity. So it's a really porous, very engaging kind of frontage. Next. And I think in there you saw the cycle track. This is a view from kind of like the western edge on the other side of Battery Lane. This kind of shows the Gateway Tower, and City will talk more about how the massing and the building kind of creates this special feature. Of course, we have on this side the western pedestrian connector with a small little sort of node kind of entry node to kind of engage and entice people to move in. CT will also talk in the massing how this western edge, as we stepping down, we have incorporated these two-level units that have entrances off the pedestrian connector, which actually will help not only activate it but provide eyes on that space. And of course, we're treating it with trees at the edge to kind of buffer the next door development. The units will have porches and stoops to get in. You'll see that, but this is kind of like how the access into that space links to the amenities of the buildings on the right-hand side. We also have an additional exit or entrance to the building on the western side that leads straight into the pedestrian walkway. Next. Now we have a bit of a close-up on the next slide, I think. Yes, so this shows the building stepping out, the access to the two-level units. You can see that, and then we're providing this walkway with seating, lighting, and of course, trees to, and plantings to sort of make it a lush experience. So this will connect straight south into Battery. And then if you turn left, that goes around the building, and you'll see on the next slide how we're creating a special node in this space with a sort of an open green lawn for casual play. You can see how this engages also with the building. So the second level courtyard that I mentioned before has a lot of exposure to this rear end. So you'll have a lot of eyes into this back area. This is the node that I mentioned before. So if you move sort of to the right, going to the east, this will connect to the eastern pedestrian connection. We mentioned how it'll be lit and how it has a number of units and activities sort of facing it and making it safer and activated. Next. So this is a view a little higher up showing the private courtyard. So again, these will provide amenities for the residents. These are private, but this is a building that will have a very extensive offering of amenities, between the pool that you can see on the left-hand side that kind of overlooks that green area and the pedestrian loop. We also have a central area with green. There is grilling, there's games. There is also to the right-hand side, we have a vegetable garden, and a variety of seating. And you can see how the massing of the building sort of stepping back on the left-hand side creates the sort of opening and the stepping of the units, which City will explain more, but to the left side, you'll see that the units coming up. And then the sort of the larger volume on the right. Next. So now I'm going to take you to the other corner. This is, This is the eastern corner, the pedestrian connector on the right-hand side will take you all the way up and then to the north on Battery to connect to Battery. And on the south along the police station, there is an existing sidewalk. So this connects exactly at that point, and it provides an immediate connection into the Rugby Lane district. Again, sort of a city node. You see here we have a dog park at this corner, which, as you know, they become really popular and a great place for people to be. So be plenty of activity and eyes along this entire sort of public space, which, I think Doug mentioned provides that connectivity that is, social, obviously, physical, of course, but it really brings the community together. Next. So now we're at the other end of that eastern passageway. This is that drop-off court that we've talked about. We're still treating it really more like a plaza. So it really feels pedestrian, but it is, it does engage the streetscape, as you can see. The building, City will describe a little more, brought that element forward, sort of creating a very strong build-to line. With uses that obviously engage the streetscape. And you can see on the right-hand side, the cycle track and how that relates to the streetscape. We're abiding, by all the guideline elements on, the street trees, the planting strip, the sidewalk, and a frontage, building frontage zone, which in this case varies. And we'll describe that in more detail as we move into how we satisfy all the guidelines. Thank you. Titi, I think I'm going to let you pick up from here.
So this slide is showing the aerial view of the project from northwest corner of the site, and it is showing 11-story massing, which set back at the base of the building. As you've seen previously, the base of the building will be cladded with large glass wall with metal trellis on the top of the base. And the tower portion of this building will be articulated with 3-story vertical expression that we compose with layer of multiple building material and window wall system. We are also locating a penthouse level on top of the 11th floor, which is going to be housing the mechanical equipment that will be serving the building, and also providing an indoor-outdoor amenity area for the residential use as well. And as you can see from the slide, we have providing significant setback all around the building. To the, we have the foreground to the building, setback on the east and the west, and you can see the through block connection on the west in front of the 2-level apartment unit with its individual accessway into the unit. Next, please. And this is the view looking from the northeast corner of the site, and you can see the curb cut from Battery Lane, the single curb cut that's entering the site, and how we kind of tuck the vehicular drop-off area under the building of this driveway. And the driveway just continues south to access our loading and parking garages. And as you can also see, the vocabulary that we treat in the is going around the building because there's no really rear elevation to this building. So we kind of apply the same treatment consistently throughout the building massing. Next slide, please. So this next slide is the view from northeast, showing the, from the southwest, showing that the building massing tapering down toward the south, giving the room for residential amenity area on top of the parking area. This configuration is beneficial because it allows and maximizes the natural lighting and ventilation for the residential unit, the courtyard area. I mean, if you really look between the two wings, there's the courtyard area that is actually on the same level as the lobby, and also the residential outdoor amenity spaces, obviously, that is raised up a few feet above it. And next slide, please. This is showing the slide from south. You see the most setback. We also do additional setback also on this wing, and that allows us to do some really active residential amenity level on this level. Next slide. So the next few slides we'll be talking about how we are satisfying the design guidelines. So this slide is showing that Battery Lane, which is in front of our building, is classified as the neighborhood connector based on the design guideline. So we are providing landscape buffer to accommodate more than 6 feet of planting and finishing zone, 6 feet of sidewalk, and 7 to 17 feet of setback on the building base. And the frontage zone actually that we're providing for this building from the face of the curb is roughly about 19 to 30 feet in total. And we're also providing a 2-story base. Before go back, Bob.
Yeah.
Okay, we are also providing 2-story base that step back from the tower of the building, roughly about 17 feet. And this base of the building is designed in proportion to the height of the building. So with that, I'm going to hand it to Bob, who's going to be talking into more detail about all the setback we're providing on the project.
So for the record, Bob Graham with Rogers Consulting. As City said, the setbacks are kind of a little unusual. As Trini described, we have a recessed 2-story lobby. So when we look at the placement of the building, we have a 21-foot setback at the western corner, a 20-foot setback at the eastern corner, and a 2-story recessed entry lobby, which is actually set back 47.5 feet from the cycle track curb, or approximately 65.5 feet from the vehicular curb. This results in about 52% of the building's front facade at the ground floor and second level being within the 20 to 25 foot Bethesda build 2 area. The average weighted for that 2-story space is about 33.5 foot setback from the curb on the average. As we move up to the second floor canopy or third floor plate, we again maintain that 52% being within the 20 to 25 foot building 2 area. As he described, our canopy recesses back from the main tower above 17 feet on the east, transitioning down to 7 feet on the western portion, and the tower element maintains its plane throughout there. So this yields us to an average weighted setback of about 25.5, 26 feet on that plane. When we move into the tower above, starting at level 3, again, we maintain our iconic tower element at 21. However, the main body of the tower is set back 34.75 feet from the cycle track curb, or 52.8 feet back from the vehicular curb. This gives us a weighted average of about 32.1 feet for that weighted average running across those spaces. Okay, back to City.
Thank you. Let's talk about the base building placement. So what we've done for this project is we have trying to create the interior and exterior function spaces and the facade to create an activated street wall along Battery Lane. We accommodate or incorporate a lounge area at the building front porch, and then we also incorporate veranda on the second floor as part of the base building design, and the base building scale and the design of the building base in tandem with the landscape design really elevate the pedestrian experience along Battery Lane for this project. Next slide, please. And to continue our street activation, this slide is showing the architectural element that we are incorporating with the building design. We are providing a varied landscape design and furnishing, and we also somewhat design, like I said earlier, the building base in tandem with the landscape design, so it's responding to each other. And we also incorporate an outdoor veranda for people to hang out on the second floor. So it really creates a lot of energy and excitement on the building facade. In addition to that, we have a metal trellis on top of it to really define the building base. And the glass wall that you've seen earlier, that create transparency for the lobby, really encourage the visual interaction, from the sidewalk into the lobby. And the balconies on the building of the tower with use of multiple layers of building material throughout the facade is ensuring the activation of the building base and the building facade in total along Battery Lane. Next slide, please. All the features that was discussed under the building placement and Battery Lane activation is also consistent with the building base variation and articulation. And the base variation and articulation just doesn't stop at Battery Lane. We bring this along, we take it to, to the west and east of the facade and also behind the building. So if you look at the slide at the bottom left-hand corner, it shows the two-story apartment articulation and how the variation from the rest of the building elevation is brought into here that allows an activation and also making the pedestrian experience for the building at the True Rock connection is a bit more energized and interesting. Next slide, please. So for corner treatment, we are emphasizing the northwest corner of the site with special corner treatment to the massing, where we bump out the massing a little bit and then angle it slightly with vertical design expression. What it do is we tie all the design element together and anchoring the building to the ground. Next slide, please. We already spoke about this earlier about how our building is stepping back significantly, and from the neighborhood, we step back to allow these amenity spaces on the south of the building, and also how we step back at the base of the building along Battery Lane. Next, please. In terms of compatibility, we are compatible with the neighboring building as it's an important, concept for us for successful integration with existing contexts. We are compatible in terms of using the same building materiality with color palette and also texture. If you look at our building design, we have very similar composition of facade treatment, how we have a larger glazing at the base of the building to allow this visual connection to the pedestrian. And that this is also most of the characteristic of the building that we've done, WDG done at Battery Lane area. Next, please. And this slide is showing our building is providing a transition with the surrounding neighbors by stepping down on all sides. So the purple color, for instance, is where we locate the two-level apartment, and that will have the individual entry into the true block collection. Next, please. Tower separation distances. We, I think, satisfy this requirement. If you look, we exceeded minimum requirement of 45 to 60 feet. We, in fact, have provide more significant setback for the tower separation distances, 61 in front from a property line. At the back, if you look at it, we have minimum 48 and the side about 45 feet, a minimum 45 feet. Next, please. But safe design. Well, this building is not designed to be a flat building. Obviously, it's not glassy or transparent, but what we have done is we have a lot of very different material and depression and all display. We have recessed balcony, we have projection, and all kind of texture for the building. So I'm going to clarify this area as a build safe zone, actually, given all the stuff that we're doing on the face of the building. Next. So for our final slide of the building, I want to walk you through all the ground floor plan to emphasize what we are doing to create an interesting based experience along Battery Lane. So if you look to the east of the site from the shared driveway, we tuck the vehicle drop-off area into the building. So it's hidden from the pedestrian. And then if you're walking up and down Battery Lane on the sidewalk, if you stop in front of the building, you'll see a transition area where we have an outdoor porch area. You can see this transparency of the glass of the two-story lobby volume that you can see inside. So it's really going to make the building really energized. And what's unique about this design is our ability to bring the courtyard down at the same level at the lobby. So even if you're standing in Battery Lane, you can actually see in through those transparent glass wall to see beyond the greenery that we're providing and engaging. And then not even that, because of the podium is pretty low, you can actually see past above it, you see all the residential amenity that we are programming on top of the building parking podium. And the other thing also, instead of we also putting all the energized residential amenity along this Battery Lane and all around the facade residential unit on the west, engaging with the through block connector. And what it allows is this is going to be used, it's going to be lit, it's going to be the people using it, hanging out and having fun. And that is providing the physical and visual connection to Battery Lane and really making this building as part of the whole picture where we're trying to create the connectivity to the neighborhood, to the community, and to the master plan and all. So with that, I'm going to pass it along to Doug that we're going to conclude our presentation, and thank you for having us today.
Yes, this is Doug Wren. Thank you for your patience in hearing our story. And I just hope that you will agree with us that we've really tried very hard to achieve our overall vision that I described for Battery Lane. We want to strengthen the residential character of this neighborhood. We want to provide free connectivity, and we really want to contribute to the overall quality of the experience of being on Battery Lane. So with that, I'll close, and we are eager to hear your comments and questions. Thank you.
This is Chow Joy. I think overall the site plan has a lot of improvement compared to previous version. Lots of strong connectivity throughout the sites, and the layout and geometry design is great. I do have a couple questions regarding the northwest corner. There's a two patio place that somewhat interrupts the green panel along the sidewalk. Can you explain that what those pavements is for? Is it for outdoor retail spaces? If you go to the site plan. Yeah, at the top, there's two pavement area. Is that a way to, create a continuous green panel to have more trees planted in this area? To have even a stronger.
Yeah, so unfortunately, the two gray areas you see here and here are actually utility services, electric services for the building. There is an engaging patio off the lobby that engages the building and provides entry from the west side as well here.
So is that a way to shift that utility pavement area or space elsewhere so that we have a continuous green panel along Battery Lane? Because right now it looks, quite nice along the entry.
We can certainly work with the utility companies to see what we can do.
Okay.
I have some site comments and building comments, so I don't know which you want to go through first. And maybe we're on the site, it seems. I mean, one question I have is, and this is Paul Mortensen, by the way. On several of your drawings, I think page 23 was one of them. It shows the cycle track. Well, it shows the cycle track, and then a planting strip. Is it this one? Yeah, there it is. Yeah. So it shows the cycle track. It shows a planting strip. Excuse me. It shows the sidewalk, a planting strip, a cycle track, and then another sidewalk. And I mean, it terminates up, I guess that's maybe the bus station area. But on the bottom, it continues to extend all the way down the street. So is there two sidewalks? Is that what is being proposed here? Two major sidewalks?
No, there's a graphical error, Paul, spot Graham, by the way. There will be a hardened median in between the vehicular travel way and the cycle track in front of the building, and that will end at the property line. Beyond that will be striping. We're working with DOT, or we're attempting to work with DOT on what the materiality of that hardened median will be. Obviously, within the bus stop area, it will be a hard concrete surface. Beyond that, we're attempting to get the ability to do grass or low-level planting, something to soften it further. We're very limited on what we can plant in that area due to sight lines, but also due to utilities that just happen to be underground in this part of Battery Lane.
I mean, ideally, it would be nice to have trees between the cars and the bikes to give a little more protection and shade and everything else, and also to make the street look narrower, so that cars, in fact, drive slower.
Right. We would love that, but there's water lines and electric lines within that zone that prohibit us from putting trees in there.
Okay. The other thing I was wondering on the site, have you guys thought about putting your vegetable gardens, your pea patches down at grade behind this building?
So we have not, these were going to be kind of private community gardens, so we have them at that level.
Mm-hmm.
Down at this level, we wanted to have something that would still, felt very public, that we felt like it was the building kind of internalizing some of those uses. So for now, that's where we have them up at the top.
Yeah, the reason I'm asking is I'm very concerned that the back of this building has just been sort of left for, unfortunately, probably people you don't want back there, for, all sorts of stuff I think can happen in that back because there's no activity back there. And not only that, but it's a blank wall. The entire, the entire width of the essentially of the building facing that back. And, I think this is something, and this is like a bigger discussion, I think, for this side of Battery Lane, because the lots are so deep. There's no alley back there. There's no, on the north side of Battery Lane on the back, we're putting in a public pathway that goes the entire length, right? That starts to link all these buildings and therefore create kind of an energy back there, and sort of, people are going to be back there and things are happening. On this side of Battery Lane, I don't see what's going on in the back, and I think that it's going to cause a problem here, and I think it's going to cause a problem when you go further west on the next, building in a later phase. It's going to be the same problem because it's going to be a back without any activity or any use, any openings that give some sense of eyes on the street or eyes on the park, just to kind of secure it. And so I'm just trying to figure out what are you going to do back there, because I don't see anything ever happening except the wrong types of things.
Yeah, Paul, I can understand why the herb gardens, the vegetable gardens would be placed up on a level. I'm coming to you today from an apartment building in Chicago, where last night we went out on the third floor terrace and grilled and got all of our herbs directly from a garden right in the middle of the West Loop. So I can understand why that's up there. I share your concern about that area in the back. I don't think putting. I think it'd be very hard to maintain that. The roof garden here at this building I'm at is maintained by a group called Roof Crops, and there are similar groups in DC that do that, and they actually farm out the rooftops as well. That might be a consideration as well to create something that's productive. But I share your concern about the back as well. I think that it is clearly a back, and it really, whether the dog park could meander somehow back there, I don't know. Maybe that's, putting the dog park into that zone. Certainly, you don't want to make it be. I think there'd be a lot of liability of making it community gardens where other people from the neighborhood could show up, because again, that would be I just think your idea that needs to be thought through is important. And I'm not sure what the solution is either. So,
well, I was asking the question kind of rhetorically, because I am, I'm concerned about this back, and I can absolutely see why you'd want the gardens up above. But the reason why I'm suggesting it is to try to get something going on in that back that will bring people there. And so what else could we do there? How can we open that up and just make it more secure and make it more active, or not necessarily vibrant, but at least something going on back there, so that we're not getting things happening back there that everybody's going to be very upset about.
There are 3 green panels that are rectangular green panels that are shown in this view. What do those represent? Putting green?
Those are stormwater management bio boxes, treating primarily the amenity deck area.
Gotcha.
So to Paul's point about the Southwest green area, I wonder, since people are working from home now, lots of the people, is that a way to provide more program elements so that people can sit outdoor and work in here to activate the space? Is there a way to think about that way instead of just a lawn area?
Yeah, so, we were kind of, because we had a really nice sizable space, we thought that it would be kind of nice, if it was something that would provide a little bit more active space, because you'll have some families and all of that. So we thought these could actually be something a little different that you cannot get in this pedestrian connector. So we have a lot of, and you're absolutely right about the fact that people are working from home and spend a lot of time, looking for places to work that are not just their small cubicles, either, the office or at home. So we have created a number of spaces internally on that first foyer that we talked about, with the amenity. That one is totally geared to become an extension of the interior and as a space for working and working outside. There's a number of seating opportunities. I mean, we could certainly look in adding more here, but we wanted to make this really feel more public, you know. Obviously, the residents of the area will use it, but our intention was to make it feel really public, really like a public space. But, you know, that said, you know, we certainly could look into that. You know, convenience is important to people that work from home because they want to be close to, resources. So we thought that courtyard may be more suited for that.
I can see a lot of people on the west side, all the townhomes or apartments can go to that park.
Yeah.
During daytime, that's for sure. But to Paul's point, what's going to happen after dusk? Good things is this is a private property, and then you will have maintenance going on, right? Operations and
Yes,
maintenance.
and I guarantee you there'll be cameras and everything because nowadays we're able to monitor a lot more than before. But
I think we have to realize that for an urban site, this project really has really a tremendous variety of outdoor experiences that will be very attractive. And the through block connectors, I think will, for strollers and other people in the community, will be a positive input. I just think, quantitatively speaking, the amount of space that's available is going to be very successful. The rear component, I think perhaps some more thought on that, but I do want us to keep in mind that compared to most projects in an urban environment, this one is over the top in terms of public, semi-public amenity spaces, particularly for the users. I also think, just take this a little different direction, the consolidation of the building and moving it to the north a little bit, or the mass of the building to the north over what was approved at the concept stage is far better. I think first of all, the walking distances for the residents is reduced. Second, it allows for this open space that I was talking about. And third, I think it puts the mass and density where it needs to be, which is on Battery Lane. And the effect of stepping down to the rear is a positive thing. So I also think that the architecture, the tripartite expression of the facades is not only unusual, but I think very effective and appropriate for this particular scale of building. And I think that we have talked about the two-story residential extension on the west, but I think that does a nice job of completing the cycle in terms of kinds of units and transition to the adjacencies. So overall, in my opinion, this is a far better solution than where we were. Of course, it's further developed, but I think it deserves support.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. I mean, the amount of space for this building is unbelievable. But unfortunately, the size of the site is also, lends itself to have this sort of, I think, unwatched sort of strange space. I think the other thing that I think is going to be very important and almost, to kind of George's comments, you have these through block connections, except one of them doesn't really go all the way through. And I know there's an adjacent piece of property to the south that needs to cooperate to make it go all the way through. And then you have about a 4-foot wide sidewalk along the police station at the eastern end connection. So these through block connections are really very strong on your site, very weak after the site. So I hope, I know there's not a lot you can do about that, but I really, really hope that you do as much as you can to make those two connections, go all the way to what I think is, Rugby or whatever the street, the next street. Because I would totally agree if this westernmost, for instance, if this western through block connection really became something and really connected to rugby, I think you would have, you know, hundreds of people using it every day, especially, you know, in good weather. And just because it's such an easy and great connection and a necessary one. So I hope you put a lot of work, you know, effort in that. There's one thing I wanted to ask about the building. And I think, again, I think this has come a long way, and I really appreciate the efforts that you've done to engage the building better with the street. But the one thing that I just have a little bit of a problem with, and that is this, well, the top of the building, essentially the cornice of the building. And, you know, it's basically the same, this sort of thick, very, you know, plainer top all the way around. And even though I think in your massing diagrams, you sort of, you know, you talk about the iconic element of this, I guess it's the northwest corner. You know, the fenestration of that northwest corner is exactly the same as the rest of the building. And I'm wondering if there's some way you can make, you know, if people are looking at this building from a little farther away, you know, they're not right in front of it on the sidewalk, but further down the street, if there's a way that you can kind of express that sort of differentiation of that corner in the elevation as well, you know, that maybe perhaps there's something different at the top on that element, or, you know, in the back, you have kind of a colonnade at the top that sort of steps down, that gives you a real sort of defined top floor, if you will, facing the courtyard. I think that was a nice little move. Is there something you can do on the other parts of this building to sort of, you know, break up the large cornice and therefore the large mass of the building?
Paul, can I?
So
Go ahead.
go ahead.
No,
ahead.
please go ahead.
So to answer that question, we did look into like incorporating something at a part of the building, but the thing what we've done here is we have some outdoor area, and we kind of don't want to block the view because the view to the north of us is pretty spectacular. So we want to like focus and use that area as an outdoor sitting area for people to hang out and that kind of stuff. So we were hoping that, you know, that in itself could be the corner treatment, you know, the activity that's happening up there. We tried to do different things, you know, put trellis and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, it looks so tacky and an afterthought. So we decided by not having it at all, it really kind of nice, give a nice cap and top to the building. So it blends to the sky. So just repositioning the massing at the corner itself allows us to like maybe articulate that corner. Maybe we can start looking about doing different penetration. I mean, we can continue developing that if you want, but we just thought that, you know, we have all this building really, you know, all the articulation and characteristic, and it ties this together, and we kind of want the building to be grounded to the ground.
Yeah.
So the reason why we don't have that attachment on top of the building is because, like I said, we looked at it, it just doesn't look too pleasant.
One thing that struck me, Paul, moving from the top of the building down to the base, is there seems to be a lot of different languages for how this building grounds. And I'm wondering if there's some way to conceptually thread the languages together so that the building really meets the ground, maybe with only one or two variations on how it does that. It just seems that there's frame, there's dark brick cladding, there's the language of the tower piece that comes down to the ground. There seems to be a lot of different ways in which the building is grounding, and I'm thinking something that's more of a belt. So maybe there's a way to actually transition that frame piece that is along Battery Lane on the more eastern part of that northern facade, maybe to transition that into some transformation that becomes the language of the townhouse fronts. It becomes the language that wraps around the building and modulates the building. The other thing I just want to say is that the site plan, which is one of our requirements, the site plan that shows the roof plan doesn't do your building justice. Your building, I think, is much easier to understand as a NOLI plan. from the street level experience. And it took me a long while in looking at the materials here to understand that there was this transparent lobby and then a view into a courtyard and then a view up in section, almost like a Genovese palazzo up to a Giardino Pensile. And that is something that's extraordinary. It goes back to what George was saying. It's a kind of extraordinary aspect of the thing. And I think that helps to mitigate any pressuring of the facade of the building to the north onto Battery Lane. I know there's some controversy on that. The other thing is that on the issue of the setback on Battery Lane, you guys have been defending setbacks based on sort of absolute quantitative stuff. I would be doing it based on contextual stuff. Like the setback of the building to your east is excessive and it is not an urban response to the kind of environment that I believe that the downtown plan is trying to achieve. So I guess looking at it relative to the buildings around it might make an even stronger argument for the massing of this building. But it took me a while to understand that courtyard, the relationship. And I think about that very much like walking through Rome or through Florence, where you're walking down the street and you're going through this compressed environment of the street, and then you have a view into this kind of luscious space beyond. And even though you're not going into it, it does really add to your experience of walking on the street.
Sure. For sure.
This is Grace. I hate to interrupt the good discussion that's going on here, but I do want to be respectful of everybody's time. We are at 10:30. This was intended to be an hour meeting, but it's our only item today. So if everyone schedule allows for it, we can continue discussing, and we still have to get to the public comments. And so I just wanted to see how everybody's day is going. Are we available to stay on longer?
Yes.
I can.
Good. Okay. And so just a little bit more, and then we'll move on to the public comment. I know we have 4 speakers that are waiting to speak. So.
Do you have the elevation of the townhouses?
We have a perspective view of it. If you
there,
that's another one.
Yeah,
that's
there.
more
Oh,
close
that's
up.
good. That's good. So, Brian, you're suggesting that maybe something kind of this gets incorporated more into sort of that arcade part, or the part on the eastern end of the front elevation.
Yeah, Paul, I don't know if it's of this. I
Not
just think that
exactly
there's
this,
like
yeah.
3 or 4 different base strategies for the building. One is a frame strategy. One is this surround with the dark color brick. One is that the 3-story motif comes down and hammers its way into the ground, and then on the back of the building, yet another motif for that. And I just wonder if there's some more continuity that could be developed in that. There could be play between wall surface and frame that would allow that frame to kind of emerge out of some consistent material of a wall surface.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know what the answer is.
Right.
That's why being a critic is so easy, right?
Well, and I totally agree. I think the one perspective, if you go back a couple of that, again, of that one,
Mm-hmm.
just if there's something that can heighten that corner mass a little bit at the sky, I just think it would be helpful.
I concur.
And it might be that maybe those top, I don't know, maybe those top windows are a little bit taller. I don't know, something, or there's a band, so that the cornice is a little thinner, or I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, but I just think that it, you've made an iconic form. So I think it just should be expressed a little bit more as an iconic element, rather than just being the same as the other side, as 2 sides.
Sure, we'll look at it.
Okay.
One more question I have. The light poles are intentionally rendered green, or are you going to design it to green?
The light poles will be subject to DOT, so they're just rendered in here to continue the pattern.
Okay, I thought there's a consistent color palette for streetscape. It looks nice though. I like
will be
it.
much. Yeah.
I think that might be it, Grace.
Okay, then. So I have 4 members signed up to speak. I will list them all in the order I was given. Holly Clemens, Anita Kramer, Dina Solomon, and Michael Fechko. Holly, are you here?
Yes, I am.
Hi.
Is it
I can hear you, yes.
okay? Thank you for your presentation with the promise of neighborhood connectivity, but not connectivity yet, for the double protected bike lanes, the glass visibility, and the affordable housing units through the MPDUs. I see adequate setback on only 3 sides of this building. Problem for me is the too small setback from Battery Lane. The current building is set back almost 40 feet. And you were talking about 17 feet or 20 feet or 25 feet, almost half of what we experience as we're walking on the sidewalk as pedestrians. So I feel that the proposed building is not in step with other buildings on our block for larger Battery Lane setbacks. For example, the recently renovated Sunrise building has a setback from Battery Lane of 58 feet. I don't consider that excessive. I feel that Alden must not erase our place, our garden residential character that we experience when we walk down Battery Lane. I'm thinking that the Site C could take some of that 35% of the open green space, especially in back, and reassign it to the front to get the proper residential setback, and also would be beneficial to the neighborhood rather than hiding it in the back, and perhaps also help with your safety issue. I think that the project proposed goal in the beginning was a quote to move Battery Lane from the car focus to the pedestrian focus. And I think you need to really think about the real pedestrian focus, especially maybe as you're walking in front of the building on Battery Lane, southwest corner, any of it, just too close to Battery Lane. It's imperative that Alden preserve the Battery Lane setback for all of your current buildings for our neighborhood. We must not be forced into a downtown urban design when we're clearly residential garden design. So the planning board mentioned, I think earlier in one of its quotes, quote, provide an urban design concept that incorporates opportunities for deeper setbacks. And I'm talking about Battery Lane setbacks, not on the side or back. Increased canopy trees and plantings that differentiates itself from the urban downtown Bethesda. And that's really what I'm asking. So thank you for your consideration to review and widen the Battery Lane setback before you vote.
Thank you, Holly. I have Anita Kramer. Anita, are you here?
I'm here.
Hi.
So I'm not going to read what I prepared. I submitted it and I hope you read it. I echo everything and support everything that Holly said. I am, having listened to the discussion today, and by the way, including all the thank yous that Holly gave. It's great to have more residential units and walkable to Metro. That's terrific. But in the discussion, I hear 2 different things, and I hear something that I am shocked at. So in the discussion, I hear that I think it was Doug who said, you know, he hopes that this design strengthens the residential character of the neighborhood and creates a pedestrian experience. Then I heard somebody towards the end of the discussion saying, we're trying to make this an urban area just like downtown. So I would say that if I heard correctly, those are 2 opposite goals. But mostly what I want to talk about was the pedestrian experience. So having, this is a particularly narrow street.
It is not your typical wide Rockville Pike. We're bringing buildings to the lot line, create a sense of place, or a low density single family new development. We're bringing those houses into the street, still creates an openness for the eyes on the street. This is a narrow street, bringing a building of this height and this mass 20 feet from pedestrians just creates a narrow hemmed-in feeling. The sidewalks are already just being widened to the lower end of the design guidelines. And I believe as this is the first building going in, if each building is encouraged to do the same, we will actually detract from the pedestrian experience and create what in hindsight will be a lesson learned as to what not to do if you're actually trying to support mobility and an enhanced experience. I would really like to see the building pushed back. I don't understand also why the step backs are in the back. That open space in the back is to me excessive and is lost for what can be done at the front. So thank you.
Dina Solomon, can I speak?
Yes, thank you, Dina.
Hello?
Hi, we can hear you.
Yeah. Yeah, after listening to all that, I really concur with what Holly Clemens and the lady who follows her are advocating. I strongly feel like them. I live on Battery Lane, and I think you should seriously consider what they have brought up to your attention. Okay? I have nothing more to add but to concur with them and totally agree with what they said. And with that, I will finish my my comment. Thank you.
Thank you. And lastly, Mr. Fechko, are you on?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Good morning. Thank you for your time. My name is Michael Fechko. I'm a longtime resident and property owner on Battery Lane. I spoke to the DAP back in February about similar concerns at 4901 Battery Lane, where the front of that building was only 12 feet from the sidewalk. And my concern was that 40 to 45 feet was being hidden behind the building, and I asked that the building could be pushed back. I have the same concerns as Anita and Holly do about this building directly across the street from it being so close to the sidewalk. And I understand that the numbers that were discussed are derived from the Bethesda downtown plan. But before a site plan is finalized for either of these buildings and potentially creates a canyon on Battery Lane, I would ask the DAP and all the planning staff and the planning board to reconsider those distances of a building from the sidewalk. The things on a building, the brick, the glass, someone's office, a gym, the lobby, does not activate a pedestrian's experience. What activates a pedestrian's experience is really being outside. That's what you're doing when you're outside. You want sky, you want air, sun, more space of grass, trees, shrubs, things like that. I certainly hope that before a site plan is finalized, that everyone gets a chance to look at those numbers again and decides that the people who use the pedestrian path, the sidewalk, every single day, all along Battery Lane, from Woodmont to Old Georgetown, gets more space instead of hiding it behind the buildings. Paul, I think you made a great point about so much space being behind the building unprogrammed. If at even 10 feet of that space could be added to the front, it would be programmed every single day by everyone who walks on Battery Lane to go to the park, to Harris Teeter, to Starbucks, to NIH, to the Metro, to the Streetery. I have two requests for the DAP and then also for planning staff as well. One, if you haven't, please visit Battery Lane. Please come here and walk Battery Lane between Woodmont and Old Georgetown and see the open space that Anita described on many properties right now. Let's try to preserve that. Let's not create a canyon. And two, if you have a chance, please listen to the pre-submission meeting that Alden had last week. The one item that came up multiple times more than any other was the idea of pushing this building back. more residents who live here, people who own property here, would like to see the space that's available on the sidewalk that's around you when you walk to stay, you know, to be retained in some way or another, instead of being surrounded by brick and glass of a building. I just don't understand, say, I don't know if it's architectural theory or someone's idea that a building that close to the sidewalk somehow activates the pedestrian's experience, benefits it, enhances it, whatever word you'd like to use. I think that when you're a pedestrian and you're getting places by foot, and I walk everywhere in the neighborhood, I would like to see some of that open space retained. So thank you very much for your time. Please consider that.
Thank you, Michael. Okay, and so that is all of the members of the public we had to sign up to speak. I'm not sure if the applicant wanted to respond to any of the concerns that were raised. I will give you the opportunity.
This is Nancy Reglin. I mean, we did discuss this at the community meeting, and I mean, we have articulated the building, so Gateway Corner. However,
Can you try again, Nancy? For those that aren't speaking right now, could you please turn off your mic so we can avoid the feedback? Okay, Nancy, try again. Ooh, now you're on mute. I didn't mean for you to mute yourself. I cannot hear you now.
Maybe unmute your phone if you are calling in from your phone.
We still can't hear you.
I'm afraid to use my.
It might be interesting if the applicant could do a street section and, you know, with basically a diagram section, but blackening in the towers on each side as ultimately proposed, and show sort of a width to height ratio, just so that we could see that a little bit better.
This is Bob Graham for the record. One of the other elements that does drive the placement of this building, along with many other buildings that are not lot line to lot line type buildings, is the fire code. And we need to have access to the main lobby, access to the buildings within 50 feet of where that fire truck can go. We also have a maximum distance that a firefighter can traverse around the building, being 450 feet. And when we look at those dimensions, we're also allowed to bring the fire truck 150 feet into the site. When we look at those dimensions, the building just fits within those parameters. There really is only an inch or two that the building could shift and still meet the critical life safety fire code of not just Montgomery County, but it's the National Life Safety Code.
So along the lines that Paul suggests with the street section, which I think is a great idea, I think a diagram, Robert, that illustrates where you're at currently relative to the life safety issues, and then what the ramifications are of moving in one direction or another would be a very succinct way of getting this across. It kind of goes back to what I was saying before, is that rationalizing setbacks on a numeric basis, to me, is not helpful. What is more helpful is understanding it on a relative basis to the context. And while I did say that it is the downtown Bethesda plan, in particular for Battery Lane, is advocating for a less suburban garden apartment type of scenario. It is not advocating for a downtown Bethesda, Wisconsin Avenue kind of scenario for setbacks, demonstrating what the implications of the setbacks are in terms of a diagram relative to existing context. And this is where I think would be helpful for all of us, understanding it with regard to the other things that are being proposed would be very helpful to, there was a gentleman made a statement about a building across the street that we looked at earlier this year, and I do recall that discussion. And understanding where we're going, what the intent is very important, and it makes, I think it's easier for lay people to make decisions about that. So I mean, Paul's idea of the street section, I think, would be very helpful with a little plan that corresponds right underneath it. Here's the traffic lanes, here's the bike lane, here's the bus stop, here's the sidewalk, here's the planting strip, here's the lobby, blah, 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 blah. It'd be very helpful.
Okay, so from the comments that I've heard today, I'm wondering, does the DAP want to see this project again with the applicant having addressed those comments, like providing the street section that Paul and Brian were just describing, and further refining that architectural detail on the northwest corner of the building? Is that what the panel is feeling like?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Concur.
And so I have been taking notes of this meeting, and I will get that up into the applicant shortly so they can further address these comments and return to the DAP again shortly. Okay.
Great.
Thank you, everyone, for your extended time this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thanks all. Thank you.
Thank